often I speak to people like consultants who build their business through um, working with people one to one and scaling in all kinds of different ways. This week, we're going to be taking a slightly different route. And it's a route I think a lot of people find very interesting. We're going to be talking about franchising. And to help me with this, we have Ryan Wimpey from Tip Top K9. Have I got that? Have I got the business name right?
Yes, Tip Top K9.
Awesome. I didn't want to check my notes as I was saying that because it can look a bit goofy when you look down to check your notes as you're introducing somebody. So I'm glad I got that right. Ryan Wimpey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me on. It took me like 6 months to get on with you, man.
I know. I've had a few things
Holy
go on
cow.
for the listener. I've had DIY disasters. Sometimes I have to move people. Not very often, but I think I had to move you twice, didn't I?
Yeah, it's okay.
Sorry. But
Not a
we're
problem.
here now. Well, thank you for making time for me. That for the listener who's meeting you for the first time,
Yeah.
can you maybe just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what it is you actually do?
Yeah. So I run a dog training franchise. We have 24 locations across the United States right now. We run a call center that supports, does all the back office for them. We do the marketing for them. We invoice their clients. And we also have a wholesale company that basically buys deep discount and wholesales to all the locations. So we handle about 80% of their products cheaper than they go buy them on their own. But basically, we're in the franchising business and we do dog training. So the locations, and I own a corporate location too. The locations, they do pet obedience for dogs with behavioral issues. You got the Labrador, Golden Retriever, etc., that's jumping on the kids, pulling on the leash, running away. That's what we do day in, day out. And our packages range anywhere $500 to $7,000.
So I get pitched every day by two or three people wanting to come on the podcast, and
Yeah.
I have a vicious delete button thing. I mash it really hard with very little compunction. I don't
Yeah.
sweat it at all. Most of my guests I reach out to, but when I saw yours, my at the back of my mind there's always a bell goes off. You need to pay attention to this one. And dog training, it'd be
Yeah.
so easy to say that's such a low rent business. And I remember once I had and I don't say that to cause any offense, but it's the kind of business that anybody can set up
It
theoretically.
is. Yeah.
And I had another podcast guest once that triggered the same response in me. And it was a lady called Jamie Cross who was making soap at home. And she turned this into a $5 million business in 2 years. And I thought, I need to understand what's happened here. And you kind of triggered the same response because you've done something special with dog training
Yeah.
that nobody else has really done. Maybe they have, I don't know. But you've turned this into something special. And it takes a special person to do that. And I'd like to understand what your journey looked like. How did you go from having an idea for a dog training business and turn this into a 32 location business?
Yeah, so I'm assuming dog training is similar to soap in that it's not really regulated. There's not a certain process and certifications that people have to go through. So literally, your neighbor can hang a shingle and say, "I'm a dog trainer."
Yeah.
Right? He starts a website, gets a business card. That doesn't mean he delivers great results. It doesn't mean he has systems or he's going to succeed. And that's why, at least in the US, like 50-something% of businesses close within 5 years, like 20% of them in the first year or two. Right. So I got started. I had a dog with issues. His name was Curly, and he had all these behavioral issues. He was a rescue off the side of the road, and he would run away. He would pull in the leash. I'd walk him in public. He'd choke himself, just like nonstop. He frustrated all my guests. I had roommates, like 19 years ago, and it got me obsessed with dog training. That's where it really started, was just a dog with real serious behavioral issues impacting my relationships with other people. And so it got me obsessed, reading everything, looking at everything. Fast forward today, we have locations all across the country, but it just didn't start there. It started like a lot of people, their passion comes from their pain. And that's really where mine came from. My second dog was no different. He had all these behavioral issues. He ended up biting someone. Right. So it just gets you obsessed trying to figure out how to come up with a solution. So I ended up working for another dog trainer for free, actually. I tried to get hired. They said, nah, it takes too long for us to train dog trainers. It's a trade. Before you're useful, it'd take a long time. So I worked for free. Eventually got hired and then got obsessed with dogs, got obsessed with helping people so they didn't have to go through the issues I went through. Right. So worked on the system. When I started, I literally had a $1,500 van with a $1,500 vinyl wrap on it. I had no website. I had a Vista Print had just started. I had a Vista Print business card, and that was it. Right. And today, everything's a lot different. But the process was I worked on the service, and then I eventually started hiring people. Eventually learned how to hire people. My first person took 6 months to train. Now we're training people in 6 weeks.
Mm.
But that's because we have all the, SOPs, we have all the manuals, we have laid out processes, and they're not learning any of the back office stuff at all.
I think this is one of the interesting things with franchising is, yes, in theory, it's very easy,
Sure.
as you said, to start a business like this. But it's very easy to start a bad business. I think something I see a lot of the time is people get to a certain point in their business and they just can't push it beyond that.
Yeah, we call that the me plus three. Most people can get any sort of business, dog training, any web business. You can get it to you plus 3 people, maybe 2 people, maybe 4, but me plus 3. And then you cap out if you don't understand how to make workflows, how to make scripts, how to offload, how to delegate, how to build people. If you can't figure out those things, then you'll cap. That's what we're working on with our franchisees, making sure they scream right past that me plus 3.
So what did that moment look like for you when you realized, okay, I'm kind of doing okay here. The next step for me is franchise rather than just keep pushing?
Yeah. So one day I woke up and my store was doing great. We made all of our, all of our scripts, all of our processes. This is how you do lessons. This is how you do sales. This is how the marketing runs. And then I'm like, well, I guess it's time to grow because everything works whether I show up or not. Right. So then we just I get with my wife and we say, hey, what are we going to do? Are we going to grow to multiple locations in like say a 3 or 4 state area, or are we going to franchise? And we're looking at the pros and cons of that. But because of the nature of our business specifically, if I went to multiple states, what would end up happening is I would have to pay a manager a very high salary or give them some sort of equity because it's so easy. They just need a website. They just need a website, a vehicle, some, ads, and they could potentially do their own thing. And so we're like, okay, well, how does that work if we give them equity, et cetera? And then we're like, why don't we just give them all the equity? Right? Why don't we just give it all to them? If 60% of people in the US want to be their own boss, like, okay, why don't we just lean into that? And that's kind of how we started franchising, just with that thought. And, it's worked good. We have a lot of people. One of the guys, he owns 4 locations. He owns the most locations. He was a HVAC technician, and no one in his family has ever owned a business. Right? He was doing dog rescue for free before this. Yeah.
So I want to get into talking about franchisees in a moment.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting from what you just described is a lot of people, and I'm not the most experienced person in the world when it comes to franchising and franchisees, but I hear stories and I hear people have a great idea for a business.
Right.
They're kind of naturally good at it. And they think, okay, now I need to scale franchising. Whereas what you described was a fairly you sound to me like a systems oriented person anyway.
Oh, yes.
Because you grew through systems, and then you could use franchising to extend the impact of those systems. You had the systems.
Correct.
And therefore were franchisable. Anybody in the franchising space will know if you don't have the systems and processes locked in, it's going to be very difficult for you to go into franchising because you're going to need to do all of that. It sounds like you kind of already had that locked in. Was that intentional?
Yes. So if people are going to scale, they have to have systems, whether they do corporate stores or franchise, or even if they just want one store. So my family had a family business, construction supply, industrial products, and they had no system. So dad worked 60 hours a week for 40 years, right? And he was never able to replace himself. He could barely go on a week's vacation. So even if you only have one store, if you actually want to take more than a week vacation at some point in your life, you have to have systems. So systems are non-negotiable unless you just want to be an owner operator only forever, right? So I don't see systems as a negotiable in any business, really.
So, how did it feel bringing in this first franchisee? What was your experience of that? Was it easy?
No, it was horribly hard. So um, it was very hard. The first few we did for $1, right? And there's a saying, there's always a cost, right? You either pay now or you pay later, but there's a cost. Right now, the cost is, 48,000. But those people that only paid $1, they probably paid more than that 48,000 over time, right? And so we put out that model and we worked it with people that were hungry, right? Looking to grow, looking to do their own thing. And it was hard for me giving up control. For a long time, I stayed almost in that me plus three for like 6 years, just because I didn't want to let go of all the control. What if that client doesn't get handled right?
Yeah.
So now it's like, what if the brand goes to another city and this person ruins my brand that I've spent, now 16 years on? Like, what if they go to another city and they ruin that brand? So it was hard. It was hard because, hey, this works great in Tulsa, Oklahoma for me with my team. Easy. How do I take someone with no experience into another city and they replicate the same thing? And so we learned a lot with those first few. We learned, hey, we need a full call center support. These people that are brand new business owners in any home service based business, if they're out in the field doing a service, can they answer their phone? No. Can they invoice clients on payment plans? Probably not, right? Those things are very hard. Is that person that wants to be the hands-on doer in the service-based business, are they going to understand digital marketing? Are they going to be able to keep up with it? Are they going to be able to keep up with the SEO changes? Probably not.
Yeah.
Our first few as well, I gave them, hey guys, here's your 40-page document on how to order everything from the 40 different vendors we use, right? A page for each vendor. And I gave them all the vendors, all the sites, everything laid out. And then, I'm just getting phone calls. Hey, I need to go to FedEx because I need these flyers today, and they don't have this paper stock. They only have this. They don't have a matte finish. They only have gloss. Like, how should I? And I was like, oh God. So, we took that on, and now we have a store. People buy it on the store. And, I have a team that just does orders. And so we kept taking stuff off. And then we said, wait a second, my team's doing this work for $15 an hour, $20 an hour. And then they're able to continue dog training at $150 or $220 an hour.
Yeah.
That just made sense because we're able to, at 24 locations, we're able to do it at scale way easier than they can unplug. And there's that, cost for switching context all the time.
Yeah. So there are people listening probably thinking, Bob, could you just ask him? In terms of revenue stream for Ryan Wimpey,
Mm-hmm.
you have the franchise fee, which is people buy into a franchise.
Sure.
That kind of is what it is, but that's kind of a one-time thing.
Mm-hmm.
What does your ongoing commercial relationship look like with the franchisee? And we can look at I think the listener would probably want to know what that looks like.
Yeah.
But then there will be benefits for both parties, and we can look at the value of that in a minute. But commercially, what does that look like?
Yeah, great question. So we do a 6% royalty. So for most franchises, for people who aren't familiar, so like that 48,000 we charge, that includes equipment for us and our franchise. That includes 6 weeks worth of training. So that's less than break even for me. But it's to get people in the door. So right now, last year on our franchise disclosure document, our average location brought in $555,000. So franchising company gets a 6% royalty, which you're like, oh man, 6% sounds high. Actually, in the dog training pet franchise industry, 8% is the normal,
Mm.
right? So we're at 6%, but our locations do above average revenue, right? So if they do below average, you have to charge higher royalties for your franchising company to survive, right? And then we do the call center, and it has a royalty of 6%. And it's not really a royalty as much as, hey, most businesses under $1 million in revenue, home service businesses, their administrative costs average 8 to 15%,
Yeah.
right? So we do 6%. To handle all their phone. And that's instead of them buying phone software, texting software, staffing someone 60 hours a week. And so we're able to answer the phone 65 hours a week. It's hard if they were to make, say, 40 grand a year, or sorry, $40,000 a month at 6%, you can't hire someone 50 hours a week for that. It's like $12 an hour.
So I know a little bit about what some franchise costs. And the last time I asked somebody for the buy-in, she wouldn't tell me this was a franchisee had bought into
Yeah.
a very well-known franchise. She wouldn't tell me the answer, but she said she could have bought a brand new, very high-end sports car for what
Yeah.
she'd paid. And you're absolutely right. The licensing fee that's there, they they're not a cost to my mind. They're
Right.
not a cost. There's a tremendous amount of value you're delivering there.
Because kind of what the goal is, we have people doing now in 1 year what took me 5 years to do, and in 2.5 years what took me 8, 9, 10 years to do. And they have the systems and support all set up, and so their work is equaling their paycheck right now. They're able to scale really fast, and that back office support is able to scale with them because that owner's only focused on growing their business. In ours, they're focused on training dogs, training people. That's it, right? They're literally just focused on the service.
So one of the things that I like about your business is, how would I put this? A lot of franchisors, when they start to build the franchise side of things, they kind of fade into the background. They become back office Billy. Whereas what I see in what you're doing is there's very visible leadership. There's
Yeah.
very visible championing of this business, which is very refreshing and very unusual in your industry, as far as I can tell. When I
Yeah.
say your industry, I mean franchising. Is that a fair assessment, or do you see
No,
people
no, that's
around you?
yeah, we're around a lot of franchising companies, so that's a very fair assessment.
Okay.
One of the things that's different is a lot of these franchisees are like, they're my people, right? So multiple of them came from my corporate store. They were my employees. They started out as entry level dog trainers. They grew into managers or sales managers, and then they open a location. The guy that I mentioned earlier, the HVAC guy with 4 locations, he was actually a client, right? I trained him back in like 2011, 2010, right? And then when he heard we were franchising, he's like, hey, I love dogs. I love the system. I've already trained 4 of my dogs with you guys. Could I do this? Right? So like these are people I know. They're not just someone who's like, oh, here's a check. I want to own my own job.
Yeah.
So I'm really invested. Like I said, these are my people. Some of these are one of our newest ones was a call center worker. My wife runs a franchising in the call center with me, and she actually we were her first job in America. She came from Australia, and we've used her for role play multiple times with franchises coming in. And then she said, "Hey, my husband makes like 100 grand a year as a truck driver, but he's gone 3.5 weeks out of the month. Do you think I could do this?" And we're like, yeah, you could do this. And so they went to Boise, Idaho, an actually competitive market, and they're doing it. So like, it's not just someone that wants an opportunity that we're like, yeah, we'll sell you one. Like I said, a lot of these, there are people. So we
Yeah.
are like really invested with them.
So you mentioned the digital marketing.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the aspects that I think adds a lot of value to any franchise is your ability to help accelerate their reach. From a practical perspective,
Mhm.
as a franchisor, what are you actually putting in terms of digital marketing?
Yeah.
How does that look?
So we run the SEO for all of our locations, and we run at a minimum Google Ads like PPC, PMAX like their retargeting on YouTube and everything. So we run PPC retargeting, and a lot of locations are also running Meta ads, Facebook and Instagram, and TikTok.
Mm.
So we're very aggressive on the digital ads, right?
And I kind of have to ask you about the YouTube side of things as well,
Yeah,
because that's really where you stand out. Um, I think I had a look earlier. Did I write it down? I didn't write it down, but if memory serves, something like 45,000 YouTube
yeah.
subscribers.
Oh, nice. It was 40 last time I looked, so that's great.
I have it right. Well, actually, I have it right here. So it is. Get out of my way. Yeah, 45,
Yeah.
um, which is pretty stunning for. I've lost you. Where have you gone? There you are. You're back again for a business that, in many respects, doesn't have to do this anymore because you could easily just say to your franchisees, "Hey, go and market yourselves."
Mm-mm.
What kind of impact does that have on the business?
So it's having a bigger and bigger impact. So for a long time, we weren't as focused on it. And then now we're making a huge push, but it's because of consumer behavior,
Hmm.
right? So right now, everyone's gathering as many reviews and video testimonials as they can. And so the consumer now, especially millennials. So our biggest market is middle to higher income, college educated homeowners, or at least some college. You know, they normally have more disposable income and they have jobs, families. And so people with jobs and families get dogs. And then guess who doesn't have time to train those dogs? So if they look in a city and they see multiple trainers, they're like, I don't know. So I don't really know who to choose. So most people are 40% are just going off Google. But that other 60%, especially of millennials, they're going to secondary social media platforms and then checking out the company again. And so our big push with YouTube specifically, Facebook, TikTok, is they're reaching out and they want to see, hey, is this real or are they just going to India and farming reviews? Like there's a local competitor, they just farm. They go out and they get reviews and they buy reviews, they pay people for reviews, etc. So review farming is a thing, and you're not going to fool consumers for very long, right? People are tech savvy; they're not dumb.
Yeah, I think that's one thing with the YouTube side of things is the authenticity kind of shines through.
Yeah,
You can't really fake that. You can, but not to 45,000 subscribers.
right, right,
By the
right.
time you're up there, you'd have been busted long ago for faking it.
Oh, for sure.
Um, so if somebody's listening thinking, you know what, franchising might be a route for me, what are the things that you would urge people to think about before they go see the lawyer?
Yeah, to franchise their business, you mean?
Yeah.
First, can you walk away from your business for a few weeks or a month? If you can't, if you don't have good enough systems, and I mean a system for answering the phone, for marketing, for hiring and firing, not just for your actual service or how to generate your product. If you can't walk away for 3 or 4 weeks, you have no business even thinking about it.
Yeah.
You have a prior step, right?
That That is a really good answer. You could almost stop there, but I sense there's more. I saw your lips moving. I interrupted.
Yes. Second is you need to get proof of concept before you franchise. There's people who they start franchising right off the bat. What we did is we licensed to start with, like we did a corporate store, right? And if you do that, if you do multiple corporate stores first, make sure that concept's proof before you try to lock someone into a 5, 7, 10-year contract. And before you spend all that money on franchising. So first off, you need to have those systems. And second, you really need to have proof of concept. You need to take someone that's not you, that doesn't have your experience, run your model on them, and then see what breaks and fix it. And if it's not fixable, then you don't need a franchise.
There's a lot to think about there. Obviously, I have no intention of franchising my business, but there's other people popping into my head as you're speaking, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting to use that lens. So when I speak to people who have just done things right, like you, it's always interesting to ask, what did you struggle with, and what do you struggle with? Which aspects of things are not all nice and shiny, are or are your areas of focus right now?
Yeah. So originally I was more focused on the actual training side than like building a team.
Hmm.
Right. Building a team and like equipping people and growing leaders that can actually think. That's more of our focus, especially as we've been expanding faster and faster. The marketing piece is hard, right? You have to keep growing or you have to keep learning how to hold agencies accountable. Um, that's one of the harder pieces because it's going so fast. If agencies get booked up, and I know you talk with agencies and stuff, especially with the AI and automation, if someone goes, hey, well, I'll just do the digital ads myself. There's all these tools and there's all these AI tools. And I'm saying, absolutely, please do that.
Yeah.
If you set up those tools wrong, then the AI just automates your wrong setup and burns your cash forever. Right?
Yeah. And nobody comes to tell you.
Yeah, no one tells you, and you don't know because you don't actually understand the setups.
And I think that's something that I come across way too often when
Yeah.
people for my clients, I really discourage spending money on ads until they have something that's converting
Right.
modestly. Then you can amplify that.
Yeah.
I think agencies cost per lead is a terrible measure. Cost per acquisition is so much more productive. And
Right.
yet a lot of agencies will say, hey, I was speaking to somebody yesterday who said their biggest problem is they were overwhelmed with leads. None of them were converting.
Mm.
And this is a terrible problem. Um, for me, a wonderful one because so easy to fix. Just stop spending the money, put it somewhere else instead. Um, oh, honestly, I I'm in danger of venting. What is your biggest challenge at the moment?
Um, so right now, like you mentioned some other people in the franchising industry, getting leads for clients very easy. For dog, everyone has a dog, right? Everyone's got a dog. Most of their dogs don't listen.
Yeah.
That's really easy. Like a quarter of our locations right now are on a wait list. Getting leads for clients is very easy. Franchise leads. In the dog training space, I'm a big dog. In the franchising space, I'm going up against very big dogs with deep pockets, and a lot of them are now private equity backed, right? So on Google, some of my clicks right now, they're 10, 15, $20 clicks. That's a pretty big cost per click. We're not even talking about conversions.
Mm,
So getting leads for franchising, right? A lot of ours is homegrown, right? And a lot of them are podcast media stuff like this. But the cold outreach is a little bit more expensive. It's a different game. I'm playing at a higher level with people that have, frankly, they've been doing it longer than me. Like if you want to be a dog trainer in Dallas Fort Worth, which is one of the top big markets in the U.S. Well, Tip Top has 9 locations there. We spend 35 grand right now. We're spending 35 grand a month in ads, digital ads. If you're going to hang your shingle in Dallas or Fort Worth, you're going to pay a heavy price. Well, that's the same thing that I'm running into in the franchising world. You
yeah.
got people like Dogtopia. They're selling them for couple hundred grand. Well, they're probably spending 60 grand a month on digital ads. That's the biggest thing I'm running into right now, just to be transparent.
That's really interesting. And
Yeah.
it could lead me down a lot of rabbit holes that, quite frankly, only you would be interested in. So I'm quite
We can.
happy to have a conversation with you later. Um, so this podcast is in 2 parts. I don't know, and I didn't check. I need to add this to my pre-flight checklist. Finn, if you're listening, you can edit this little bit of me rambling out. But did you see the guest briefing? Awesome. I
Sure
need
did.
to remember
The
to
top
do this.
three.
So part two of the podcast, Finn, you can press play again. Um, is where I invite the guest to share three things that are working for you that you would like other people to know about. So this could be a mental model, a book
Yeah.
that you love, a podcast you think everyone needs to listen to other than this one. And if you're listening to more than one a week, it's okay. You can listen to another one. Um, anything like that.
Yeah.
Do you have three things?
Yes. I probably got a
Awesome.
lot, but the number one, if people, because I have friends in other businesses and stuff too, that ask similar type questions. And I'm like, hey, number one, do not position your brand to focus on selling to low income families, especially if you're a home service based business. Do not, I mean, who focuses on mass but low income? Someone like Walmart, right? Do you want to compete against them? They have to have very high tech, very, very tight systems. So the issue with focusing on that is one is your cost per lead, right? If my customer acquisition cost, right, instead of lead, like you were saying, the customer acquisition cost is better. So say it costs me in dog training $60 to $100 to acquire my customer. Do I want to sell them $500 or $4,000? Well, obviously I want to sell them 4,000 every time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think a lot of my listeners are people like consultants or coaches and things like that.
Yeah.
And as you're speaking, I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? A lot of coaches and consultants, when it comes to their social media, they're talking about the problems that people at the beginning of their journey have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very similar to what you're describing there. They're talking
Yeah.
to people who are at the stages that people people at those stages often don't have disposable income to spend money on
Oh,
the kind of coaching and consulting that you offer. So speak to the more expensive problems. Speak to the problems
yes.
that much later stage organizations and people have. That's honestly sounds so simple, but if you're listening at home, examine your own content marketing and think,
Yeah.
am I speaking to a low rent problem? Would be the crude way I would put it.
Yeah.
Um,
No, the other reason is there's a couple reasons why it's not just so say we have a $7,000 boot camp, right? And I just had a guy, he sold three of them, 21 grand. That guy is used to throwing money at problems,
yeah,
right? He's like, hey, let me know when the dogs are done. It's not
yeah,
emotional for him. He's been used to it. The $500 person, we sell those packages too. They're probably taking home 2 grand cash a month. That's 25% of their monthly income. That's a huge investment for that person. There's a
yeah,
lot of emotion there. That's a way different client, right?
yeah. That's
So
a
so I
really,
have
really good observation.
yeah. Hey, and then it makes the sales process harder. It makes the margins lower, which makes scaling harder. If I'm selling low budget items to low budget people, then the sales is harder. I get more price objections, which means it's harder to train a salesperson in. Second, if my margins are lower, am I going to be able to get a higher quality person to fulfill that job? Probably not. And then if my sales process is harder and I'm not bringing in as good A players because my margins are lower, can I scale and walk away from the business? No. So it's huge for us. Hey, we still take some of those, but like our focus, our branding, like if you look at our site, we're going towards the high end people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good advice and a really good observation. So thing number two.
Thing number two, this helped us in franchising. This has helped me for a long time. Basically, the Ready, Fire, Aim principle. The book is by Michael Masterson. It's also similar in the Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Those books, basically, they're talking about rapid iteration.
Yeah,
Put your concept out there, see what works. This is when we first started franchising. Hey, we now do 6 weeks of initial training. We originally did 4. It wasn't enough. The industry standard is 3. 2 to 3 is what most dog training franchises do because it's expensive, right? And so we did 4. We were like, okay, cool. We'll do 30% more than double to 30% more, right? No, wasn't enough. And then so now we do 6 weeks of training. But that was because we started the model and did it out there. Our most
What I love
profitable.
about
Go ahead.
yeah, well, what I love about this one in working with clients, one of the most common issues I struggle with is analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
That people need to have the big master plan before they will pour their energy into it. And what you described there is just move, and when it
Right.
works, capture it, codify it, document it, and then
Yeah.
systematize it. If it doesn't work, move on, try the next thing.
Yes.
It's a much more productive way of approaching this. I'm absolutely guilty of this. I had my podcast mic for 4 years before I recorded anything because I needed the master plan. I changed the name of my podcast 4 times in 3 years. That worked fine. Um, it's just this move or catch fire. I love it. It's so important.
Yeah, that's really helped us. And the lean startup adds a little bit more to that model. In his book, Eric Ries is really talking about you don't actually know what your client wants. You just think you know.
Yeah,
And until you let them experience your product, you don't actually know. And right now, like some of our most profitable packages were not my idea. They were based off client feedback.
yeah,
And I'm like, hey, $4,000 gets you this. And they're like, yeah, but I'd pay $2,500 for half that. I'm like, wait, what?
yeah. I think this. And people often say, "I need to do some market research." No, you don't, because people will lie to you.
Right.
Um, the customers will tell you when you try and sell it to them what the response is, and
Yeah.
market research is very much a numbers game. So you need to have an awful lot of customers under your belt in order to adapt. So I really like that. So thing number 3.
Yeah. Thing number 3, we touched on earlier, but max out your digital ads. Like spend your time and your focus. It's not a deep thought, but I still see, like I have buddies in, they're doing septic tank detailing, etc. And the different service-based businesses. I'm like, how much are you spending? Oh, we're mostly word of mouth. And I'm like, oh my God. Or they'll spend like $1,500 a month. And I'm like, maximize your digital ads. Like at least max one platform and then go to the next one and go to the colder and colder ones. But to not maximize it right now, you're leaving money on the table. And then you're making opportunities for those people that are hanging the shingle as well. So I see it both offensively and defensively.
So I have a question around that. I agree with you, but I put some caution into it because spending money on ads is a very easy thing to do,
For
and
sure.
it's a very easy thing to get wrong, and it's a very easy way to get burned. But it can be a beautiful thing when it's working.
Yes.
Um, question number 1 is: do you know if you get best conversion from your targeted ads,
Mhm.
if you see what I mean, and your remarketing? Which convert best for you?
The so organic converts best.
Yeah.
Yeah, our organic converts best. Um, I don't. That's a good question. We don't have it, so it's showing me my bounce rate on PPC is still somewhat high, but it still converts a lot. Um, I know the Google as a whole, both the PPC and the remarketing. I'm not sure ours is segmented on that on our reporting. The Google console as a whole converts better than YouTube, and then Meta is actually converts differently in different areas. So in the Midwest, as opposed to like West Coast, it converts great, and it's like double the cost here.
How do you decide what's an appropriate ad spend in your business? Because
It's
there's going to be a proportionality here for the
yeah.
listener at home, and to understand what that looks like for you would probably give listeners a better understanding of what's appropriate.
Yeah, so we have a different approach. So I go first, I go to the client my client is like the franchise owner. And then we're asking the owner, hey, what are their goals? What are their income goals? What are their margins, etc. And then so say just for round numbers, if a lead costs $50 to $100 a lead and I need 4 leads to get 2 consultations and 2 consultations equals 1 sale. right? So then I can figure out my customer acquisition cost. I figure out my clicks on whatever the platform is, and then I have a general range. So then we recommend the ad spend based off whatever they want their gross sales to be, based off whatever they want their take home profit to be. So instead of just a flat 5 or 6%, we're doing it off that because of the agencies we're using, they have a pretty good idea that, hey, the leads are going to cost $50 to $100 a conversion,
Yeah.
right? From whatever platform.
So actually, you really are looking at it as buying customers and knowing what they cost. And
Correct.
through experience, you can judge whether something's working or not. And that is a very healthy way to approach it.
Yeah.
I have one little bit of nerdology that I'm going to share with you later around remarketing ads. From what I'm hearing, you might not have this in place. And if when you do,
Yeah.
it's pure magic.
Ooh, I love magic, Bob. Please give me all the magic. I want it
It's
all.
literally free money.
Ooh.
But that's for the listener. That's for another day. For Ryan, when I stop, we can talk about that. This has been really useful. I think if there is anybody listening in the US, I don't think you're international yet, and they're thinking,
Not yet.
you know what, maybe dog training is for me. How can they maybe move towards this with you? What does that look like?
Absolutely. So if they're interested in dog training at all, you can go to our franchise site, tiptopk9franchising.com. You can go to our main site, tiptopk9, tiptopk9.com /book. You can get our free how to start your own dog training business. If you wanted to compete with us, if you want to know what opening up a dog training business looks like, hey, I wrote a book. I've been doing it 17 years. I wrote a book on, hey, this is how to start your own dog training company. If you want to do it, here it is. It's step by step, and it's actually legitimate. You could use it. It shows all the systems you're going to need, etc. So if you're interested in dog training, you can go to tiptopk9.com /book. Get that as a free download. Or if you're interested in franchising, or if you just want to have a call. Most people, they're like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm interested in that. The best thing to do, our franchise developer, he's one location of the year twice, and he's actually owns 3 locations. And so that makes it a little bit different. They're not having a phone conversation with a salesperson necessarily. He actually is an owner, and that it does 2 things. It protects our brand. He's not going to let crazy idiots in, right? Because it's his brand too. It's tied to his paycheck. And then, 2, he's able to actually really answer their questions. He's able to answer them better, and we have less dumb BS phone calls because he can answer everyone's questions like that on what it's really like.
Yeah, it's more of a, are you a good fit for the family rather than kind of get this across the line.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess if anybody's thinking, you know what, I've got a naughty dog, it needs some work, I'm sure Tip Top K9.
If you got a naughty dog, that's our jam. That's our specialty. The first lesson's $1. We're gonna come out. We're gonna show you what we can do with that naughty rascal in 10 to 15 minutes. And like I said, it's anywhere $600 to $7,000 after that.
Well, Ryan Wimpey, I'm glad I did not delete your email. This has been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot, and I've really enjoyed myself. So thank you very much for your time.
Bob, you're a rock star. Thanks for having me on, sir.
And that does bring us to the end of another show. If you've enjoyed this show, don't forget you can rate or review it wherever you listen to podcasts. It's 5 stars, like the fingers on your hand, no less than 5 stars. If you did enjoy the show, you will also love the Personal Brand Business Roadmap. It's 50 pages of everything you need to start, scale, or fix your expert business, but not start a dog business. That's on Ryan's website. Ryan, thank you for your time and your home for listening. Thank you so much, too.
Thanks, Bob.